Hello everyone, this is Lord Kernan and I am back with Game 3 of the King of Kings GT. It was a 2,000 point Kings of War tournament, and Game 3 the scenario was pillage. So pillage is the one where you and your opponent plays D3 plus 4 tokens before picking table sides. And then at the end of the game, for every token that you have a unit within 3 inches and your opponent does not, you claim that token. Person with more tokens at the end of the game, more of the counters under their control at the end of the game wins. So that would be 15-5, and then like I said before, we adjust it based on how much you kill, so we're both trying to kill things and take these objectives. So we ended up rolling 7, so whoever controls the 4 will get the W. So this game, I was sitting on table 1 in first place. The guy in second place wasn't that far behind me. He was taking the herd. So let's take a look at the lists. So here's my army. I have a Lesser Abyssal Horde with the CS bonus item. I have an Abyssal Fiend with Fly and the Elite item. I then have 2 Hellhound troops and 2 Gargoyle troops. I also took a Moloch Horde with an Abyssal Fiend Fly and 3 Flamebearer troops. And finally I have a Tortured Soul Horde. And for my opponent's list, he had a Berserker Horde with... the Berserkers had CS1. I'm not sure if that's inherent in them or if he took an item for that, but regardless, they had CS1. Yeah, this is a tough unit. They have 35 attacks, really blendy. Not great nerve, though, and not great defense, so if I can do any damage to them, they go down pretty quickly. Problem is if they're a little bit faster than I am, their movement's 6. If I get to them, or if they get to one of my units, there's a good chance it takes it off with 35 attacks. So one of the most blendy units in the game. I don't think there's anything that has more attacks than them. With them, he has 3 Harpy troops, a Battle Totem, which this is a pretty cool item if you haven't faced it before. It is a totem that does advanced deployment, so you place it anywhere on the table after picking sides, before anything else goes down, and doesn't have to be in your deployment zone. It has, and this totem gives Inspiring and it casts Bane Chant. Pretty cool item, pretty unique. There's nothing else in the game quite like it, and I'd like to see a lot more things in the Kings of War armies like this, where it's a choice that's completely unique, gives a little bit of a bonus, isn't a character, but has some abilities that a character would have. I'd like to see a lot more things like this. He also has an avatar with wings. He then has a Lycan Horde, who also has an avatar with wings. He's a Chariot Horde with the +1 movement ability, so their movement 9. And then finally he has another Lycan Horde. So Lycans are hard to deal with. They're fast, they're nimble. Same movement as my dogs, so I can't use that to push them around. Could potentially use my, why am I blanking on words? My Tortured Souls to do that, but yeah, we'll see. So my opponent's deployment going left to right, he has his avatar, his chariots, his first unit of Lycans. Behind the Impassable, he has a unit of Harpies. Next to them, he has another one of his avatars. Behind them, another group of Harpies. Next to them, he has his Berserkers. Next to the Berserkers, he has his third and final Harpy Horde, or Harpy Troop. And then over here on this side, he has his other Lycan Horde. Yep, there you see the third Harpy unit. So my deployment left to right, I have my dogs, 2 units of Flame Bearers next to them, my first Abyssal Fiend behind that. In the woods, I have my Tortured Souls. Behind them, yep, there it is. Or next to the Tortured Souls, I have my second Abyssal Fiend with the Elite. Behind them, I have both of my Gargoyles. Next to my Abyssal Fiend, I have my Molochs. Next to them, I have my third unit of Flame Bearers. Behind them on an angle, I have my Lesser Abyssals. So this, once again, is same type of thing that I was talking about before. You really need to think about what you're planning on doing first turn, because otherwise, if you're not in the right angle that you want, you can't march. So in this game, what I wanted to do was here I'm going to go ahead and show my last. And then finally on this far side, countering his Lycans, I have my unit of dogs. Yep, so here's just some pictures of his deployment. I'm going to go back to this picture. So what my strategy is for this game, I want to win the left, my left. which is why I have so much over there. I have a lot of shooting. His stuff doesn't have great nerve. That's the one thing about the herd. Their nerve isn't that great pretty much across the board, but and their defense isn't that great either. They are pretty susceptible to shooting, but if they get to you, they are blendy. So I wanted to use my longer range of the Molochs and my Abyssal Fiends over there on the left, along with the Tortured Soul, or along with the Flame Bearers. Hopefully do some damage. If I can win that flank, I'll be in good shape. In the center, I just want to delay until I win that left flank, and I wanted to use that building to anchor the flank of my Molochs, or sorry, of my lower Abyssals. That's why I angle them like this, so they can march up, get next to the building, and use that to anchor that flank. The Molochs are going to move up next to them. I'll create a slanted battle line so that he has to turn his rear towards the left flank in order to rank up to my units. In doing so, he'll be showing the rear to any unit coming over from the left. So that's the plan. Over on the right, my goal is just delay. I have the same movement as he does. His nerve isn't that great. I have a unit of Flame Bearers there providing some shooting support. If I can do a couple wound to the Lycans and then if he gets the charge, or if I get the charge with my dogs, I'll have a good chance of taking out those Lycans. Thing is we're the same movement, but my dogs don't have to deal with the Lycans. They can just play keep away. We have the same movement. He's not going to get the charge on me. If he wants to line it up so I can charge him, or so he can charge me his next turn, then he's also going to give it up so that I can charge him next turn. So it's pretty much impossible for him to avoid that. So I'm basically going to use that to just play counter. Slow up his Lycans enough so they can't get around me, and by using the dogs to offer a counter threat. They have enough of a punch that he can't ignore them. He can't just eat a charge from that, because I could always skew high and take him off, especially after I do a couple of wounds with shooting. So that's the idea there. I just want to delay on that side. I want to push and win the left, and I want to slant the battle line so that by the time I win the left, he's going to be showing his rear to me. So we go to turn 1, and he won first turn, so he moved up pretty conservatively. He made sure to keep all of his units outside of 18 of my Flame Bearers, so I can't shoot. I have to move in order to shoot, so that should take some of the sting off of my shooting. That also means he can't charge me, so pretty interesting move there. See how I handle it. In the center, he also pushes up pretty conservatively, not that much. His Avatar jumped behind the unit, get everything in inspiring range. Over here, he also moved up, stayed out of 18 inches. So, yeah, he can't charge me next turn, and I can't charge him. So it slowed him down a little bit on this side. He's not pushing, which is exactly what I wanted to do. Here's just an overview of the board. And we go to my first turn. So yeah, I did what I wanted to in the front. I moved my lower Abyssals up on an angle. Molochs moved up with them to form a battle line that slanted towards the center, or slanted towards the left, rather. The Flame Bearers turned and moved towards the Lycans. They are still just out of range, I believe, so I didn't get to shoot with them this turn. My Gargoyles moved up. The first unit moved up to plug that gap between them and the Tortured Souls, and the other unit moved behind both my infantry, so I can move him center to chaff and block the Berserkers in the middle if he pushes up hard in the middle. But they can also offer support to the gods on the right if the Lycan hordes decide to get a little friendly. Over here in the left flank, I moved up my Flame Bearers to push. I'm giving him charges, but I'm perfectly fine with that. I have it set up so I can get a lot of counter charges if he does charge in with his Lycans and his Chariots into my Flame Bearers. If he doesn't, I'm just getting more shooting rounds, so I'm fine with that too. And yeah, I'm also moved my other Abyssal Fiend over to offer more support on this flank, so I have a better chance of winning it. I'm going to have a whole lot of counter charges if he charges into me. So we go to turn 3, and here's where I realized that my camera was not taking good pictures, so I decided to turn on my flash, and so the pictures from here on out should be a lot better. He moved up one Harpy unit to block both my Molochs and my Lesser Abyssals, so that's fair. He moved up his Avatar up towards the woods. He angled him and moved him up towards here. And I think this was a mistake. I think he forgot that that you can't see through woods, so all I need to do is move the Molochs out there, and his Avatar there can't charge anything. He didn't really have any other choices. He basically had to move this way. He basically had to be facing this way if he wanted to get to that position. So yeah, he really didn't have much of a choice because you only get the one pivot if you're marching. Um, but I think he probably would have wanted to go somewhere else if he remembered that. Excuse me. If he remembered that you can't see through woods. It's a little bit of a tough adjustment for all of us jumping from 8th edition Warhammer. We're so used to being able to see through woods without a problem, just offering a little bit of shooting cover, which we don't care about most of the time, especially with an aggressive army. Also a little bit of an adjustment to get used to the idea of only getting one pivot during a march, especially with a solo flyer. So it's a little bit more limited, and that sort of bit him here, not being able to get any angles to charge next turn with his avatar if he wants to. Over here, he did take the charges. Both units charged in, both the Lycans and the Chariots. And his avatar over on this flank moved up 20 inches and pivoted, hoping that he was able to block my dogs from being able to charge past. There's that. Over here I made a big mistake. I didn't move these dogs at all, and in doing so, he was able to move. Because Lycans are nimble, so he was able to pivot and move 19 inches, get out of the arc of sight of my dogs. I didn't realize he could do this, or else I would have angled him a little bit more. Really good move on his part, really bad oversight on my part. But at least I have enough chaff over there. I should be able to get my dogs up to ensure I get the charge, which will continue to delay him at least a little bit. In combat, he killed both of my units of flame bears as expected, and he reformed. And here's where he made a very big mistake. He moved up his avatar as far as he could to get him on the hill. His avatar is just barely touching the hill so that he can countercharge over the hill and see everything on the other side. But in doing so, he thought he was also blocking my dogs. And as he was reforming, I just said straight to him, look, I'm pretty sure my dogs can pivot around you. You move forward 20 inches, you really couldn't have done any better. I'm pretty sure because my dogs are nimble, I can get around. So he comes over to my side of the table, and I show him, like, look, this is a pivot for my dogs. Sure enough, they could pivot by without touching the avatar. And because they're nimble, I could always move forward a little bit, pivot back, and charge the front or flank of his chariots. So at this point, he realized that his chariots are basically dead. There's no way he avoids. He's either going to get flanked by my Molochs or flanked by my dogs. So he stayed like this, just give the Molochs the flank and the dogs in the front. And just so that way he wasn't also giving up a flank charge to my Abyssal Fiend. So he did like that. Here's just an overview of the board at the end of his turn. And we go to my second turn. So I did jump in with both charges. The Molochs went into the flank, or the Tortured Souls rather, went into the flank of the chariots. The dogs were able to pivot around and get into the front, which is huge. Both of my Abyssal Fiends went into his Lycans. That should be enough to take them off. He's out of inspiring range, so I don't need to worry about any rerolls, so that's nice. There's that. Over here, I charged my Molochs in and backed up my lower Abyssals. The Furies were able to draw a line. They weren't able to draw a line. They just jumped over and jumped in front of the Berserkers right there, just to chaff them up. Yeah, there's that. Over here, I measured it. His Lycans could not get around the Flame Bearers as it was to get into the flank of my lower Abyssals, largely because I backed up. I think I sidestepped the Flame Bearers a little bit. There wasn't quite 5 inches between the edge of the Flame Bearers and the built impassable terrain, so we couldn't get through there with his Lycans, so I didn't really need anything else to do there. The Gargoyles moved up to offer some support if he decides to try to get around the Flame Bearers without dealing with them. He is going to get charged by Gargoyles, which isn't much, but it's enough to at least prevent him from getting anywhere else and giving me more opportunities to set up charges with my dogs. The dogs moved up and around the water feature, lining up on the rear of the Lycans. If he charges into my Flame Bearers or my Gargoyles and he fails to break them, I'm going to get a rear charge with the dogs, which should be more than enough to take them off. If he charges into either of those units and breaks them, I'll still get a charge with my dogs unobstructed. So there's that. Shooting, the flame bears opened up, and I rolled pretty well. I ended up doing 5 wounds to the lichens, so they're starting to get chipped away. Now at this point, if my dogs get into them, there's a good chance the dogs take them off. Combat, the Abyssal Fiends take out the lichens. I did a good number of wounds there. I was unobstructed, wounding on 2s with reroll 1s, hitting on 3s. So did a lot of wounds, was able to break them pretty easily, especially without any inspiring. And then here, as expected, the chariots also went down to the flank charge of the Molochs. So when I reformed, I faced everything towards his avatar, which I think actually was a mistake. I faced the one character and both Molochs and the dogs towards his avatar. The base sizes of the bigger avatar should be the same size as the first avatar of the blue avatar. The base sizes should be the same. So that's why I brought the second base. I was like, this is where he should be. Do you agree that you can't charge him? He said, yeah, that's fine. So there's that. I think I made a mistake here with the reform. If his avatar charges my dog and the dogs in the front, the dogs are probably dead anyway. So I should have, and as it's set up now, he can just charge over with his avatar into my Abyssal Fiend, and then there's nothing offering there to countercharge him. My Tortured Souls can't do it, and the other Abyssal Fiend can't do it, and the dogs are out of position. Because there's a good chance of him just breaking the dogs even if he charges me in the front, I should have just given him the rear on my dogs. That would have made it a situation where if he charges my dogs, it's fine, he kills them. He's then eating a countercharge by Molochs and an Abyssal Fiend. That should be enough to take out his avatar. If he charges over them into my Abyssal Fiend, he's eating a rear charge from the dogs next turn. So yeah, I should have just given him the rear charge on the dogs. Also gives the dogs the advantage of that they can now march my next turn, depending if he just decides to avoid combat and flies towards the middle. My dogs will be set up to countercharge him there, in the flank potentially. And yeah, just would have given me more options to have my dogs facing the other way. Just give him the rear if he wants it, because knowing that I'll get the countercharge with enough units to probably take off his avatar. So it's a small point, but still pretty critical. Could have helped me a lot, especially here. So he charged his avatar over, so now there's nothing that can countercharge. Big mistake on my part. The harpies near the impassable that I jumped over were able to get into range and charge my Abyssal Fiend in the flank. Shouldn't be that big a deal. Furies don't have that much damage output. I'm defense 5. I'm not really worried about them in my flank. I'm more worried that his avatar hopefully doesn't roll hot. He shouldn't be able to break that guy anyway, but he could do enough damage that'll make it risky if he charges into me again. This guy just moved around and got into the flank of the Molochs. And these guys, yeah, because they were nimble and in range, they were able to wheel twice to get around the flame bearers and into the front of my gargoyles. Fortunately, that's still in charge range of my dogs, so at least I'll be able to shoot something. At least I'll be able to countercharge my turn. Combat, yeah, he takes out the gargoyles. It's not that unexpected. They're really not that survivable. And he turns around to face my dogs. Combat, he had charged into my blocking Furies, or Gargoyles rather, and was able to take them off. Once again, not very unexpected. So we go to my turn 3. Dogs go into his lichens. The flame bears also wheel to shoot at his berserkers. Here in combat, he did 9 wounds to my Abyssal Fiend. With Inspiring, he would have needed to roll 9 twice. He didn't do it, so my guy was fine. He countercharges back into his avatar. The dogs turn around to line up a rear charge next turn on his avatar as well. And my other Abyssal Fiend charges into the Harpies just to take him off. The Tortured Souls turn around and start moving back towards the center of the board to once again spring my trap that I was talking about, where he has to turn his rear to me. Because my Abyssal Fiend is height 4 and it's directly in front of his avatar will not be able to see around him into the Tortured Soul. So I'm not worried about giving up a charge there because he won't be able to see around me. And yeah, the avatars, or the Tortured Souls are nimble, so they were just able to turn around and move back towards the center. and they have a pretty good charge range on everything in the center of the board, so pretty good spot there. Here, the lower Abyssals charged into the front of the Furies there that were moved up to block me again. I was able to kill them in my turn. I don't have pictures of this. I was able to kill them in my turn, and then I reformed like that so that his Berserkers need to go, when they go into the front, they'll be completely showing the rear to my Molochs. Or, yeah, to my Tortured Souls, rather. My Molochs just backed up. By backing up 2.5 inches, I was able to get the Abyssal Fiend into my front, so there's that. That was lucky there. If I couldn't do that, I was just going to reform, throw the Molochs up kind of as an offering, so that his Berserkers could have gone into their flank, taken them off, but then I would have been able to countercharge with my lower Abyssals and my Tortured Souls. Fortunately, I didn't have to worry about that. I could just back up my Molochs and not throw them away so easily. So right now his avatar is in my front of them. There's just a picture of that. My dogs just turned around and moved forward a little bit so that they have a lot of countercharge options my next turn. And if he abandons this flank, the dogs will be able to move up and grab that counter over here on the left flank. Combat, I did 4 wounds with my Abyssal Fiend into his avatar, and my other Abyssal Fiend was able to take out his gargoyles. Here, I rolled pretty well. I had 15 attacks. I think I did 6 or 7 wounds or something to him with my Thunderous Charge. I was able to bring him up to like 12 wounds. He's only nerve 17, I think. And so I was able to roll the 5+ in order to take him out. He's out of Inspiring, so those guys dropped. So we go back to Roger's turn 4. Once again, I don't have a picture of this. He charged his Berserkers into my lower Abyssals. And yeah, 35 attacks turns out hurts a lot. He was able to get Bane Chant on him from the totem, which you can just barely see it behind the impassable terrain. Yeah, you can just barely see it there. He was able to get Bane Chant off on them. So now they're CS2. And with 35 attacks, yeah, they did a ridiculous number of wounds. He barely had to. He just basically needed to not roll Snake Eyes, and my guys were taken off. So he's able to drop them, but now he has the Molochs lined up for the rear, and the dogs lined up to the front. He's in the same position he was with the Chariots. He's going to give up a rear charge to one of those two, so he decided to just take the dogs in the front. There's really no right way to do that. They're probably getting taken off regardless, especially since they're only defense 3. His avatar went into the front of my Molochs, did a couple of wounds, not that much, wasn't able to break them. There's that. So we go to my turn 4. Sure enough, I sent my Molochs into the rear and my dogs into the front. They are, yeah, so I mean that unit's probably going to be taken off. Molochs countercharged into his avatar. In his turn, rather than countercharging with his other avatar back into my Abyssal Fiend, he just flew him over everything, over the woods to line up on my Molochs and start trying to deal with my center. So because he abandoned that flank, I moved both my Abyssal Fiends over. My one Abyssal Fiend is lined up looking at the rear of his avatar. The other one is moving up into the woods. Once again, just overlook everything on the board edge for my next turn. Combat, as expected, these guys took that out. I ended up doing a couple wounds to the avatar, not that much. I wasn't able to take him out. And so we go to his turn 5. Yeah, he countercharged both of his avatars into my Moloch and was able to take them out. Otherwise, he doesn't really have that much left. That was kind of the end of his turn. So we go to my turn 5, and I charge with everything. My Molochs my Tortured Souls and my Abyssal Fiend charge into the front of his first avatar. And then over here, once again, he didn't really have many options. He had to give up either 2 flanks or a front and a rear to some combination of my dogs and my Abyssal Fiends. So he decided to eat 2 flanks. Shouldn't be an issue. I should be able to take them out regardless. These guys just turned around in order to start marching back towards that token and able to grab it for my last turn. And these guys moved up to grab this token. So I have the scenario locked up. Should end up being a big win for me here. Especially now, yeah, I was able to take off both of his avatars, so now all he has left is his totem. In my turn 6, I was able to get my Tortured Souls and my one avatar into his battle totem. Despite triple attacks, I wasn't able to drop him the first round, which is kind of weird. I just rolled terribly, like absolutely terribly. So I didn't take him out there. Fortunately, we ended up going to turn 7, so when I countercharged him in my turn 7, I was able to take out the battle totem then. So there's that. That was pretty nice. So in the end, it ended up being a 20-0. I had taken him off. I had exactly 1,200 points left on the table, which made it a 1,200 point gap. Gave me the +5, -5, so it ended up being a 20-0. So at the end of day 1, I am in first place. I have a 16, a 19, and a 20 for my 3 wins. Sitting in first place pretty well up there in front of the guy in next place. I'm basically in a position where if I win my game 4, I essentially have the tournament locked up as long as I don't get zeroed in game 5. So there's that. That was the end of day 1. Pretty successful day for me. I played pretty well, I think, through all of my games. So we go into the overnight, and yeah, I'll get back to you with game 4 hopefully soon. Hope you enjoyed the report, guys. Take it easy.